Are you doing everything right for your hair? Using the best shampoos, taking supplements, maybe even increasing protein, yet your hair is still thinning, shedding, or losing strength. Here's a surprising fact most people never hear. Hair loss is often not a hair problem at all. It's a metabolic, nutritional, and signaling problem happening deep inside the body long before you see it in the mirror. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your hair follicles are among the most metabolically active tissues you have. They require a constant supply of amino acids, minerals, oxygen, and growth signals to stay in the growth phase, also called antigen. When the body senses scarcity, whether that's protein deficiency, insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, or hormonal stress, it diverts resources away from hair to protect vital organs like the brain and heart. Hair becomes expendable. Now, most people think the solution is simple: eat more eggs, drink protein shakes, or take collagen. But what the research shows is that protein quantity alone is not the issue. It's protein quality, absorption, and metabolic context, especially how insulin, inflammation, and the liver regulate amino acid delivery to tissues like the scalp. And this is where today's topic becomes fascinating. There is a humble vegetable, often overlooked, rarely celebrated, that actually delivers more usable protein per calorie than eggs, along with key coactors that directly support hair follicle signaling, blood flow, and collagen synthesis. And unlike many animal proteins, it does this without spiking insulin or triggering inflammation that can silently worsen hair loss. In today's video, I'm going to break down exactly how this works using simple physiology and real-world analogies, the same way I would explain it to a patient in my clinic. We'll talk about why hair loss accelerates when protein is eaten in the wrong metabolic environment, how insulin resistance quietly starves hair follicles, why the liver plays a central role in hair growth, and how one specific vegetable can flip the switch back toward growth, strength, and thickness. Most importantly, I'll show you how to use this food correctly, when to eat it, how to pair it, and what common mistakes to avoid so it actually benefits your hair instead of just passing through your system. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing to the channel. I post evidence-based content like this every day to help you restore health naturally, starting with the root causes, not just the symptoms. Let's start by outlining the 6 science-backed insights we'll walk through together. Because once you understand the why, the solution becomes surprisingly simple. Here's what's really going on inside your body when hair starts thinning long before you ever notice strands in the shower. Hair follicles are among the most metabolically active structures in the human body. They divide rapidly, demand constant amino acids, and rely on a steady supply of oxygen, minerals, and growth signals. That means your hair is often the first place your body cuts resources when metabolism becomes inefficient. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your body as a city and protein as construction material. Your organs, brain, heart, liver are critical infrastructure. Hair follicles are like renovation projects. When resources are tight, the city doesn't stop maintaining bridges and hospitals. It pauses renovations. Hair growth slows, shafts thin, and eventually follicles enter a resting phase. This is why hair loss is rarely about a lack of shampoo or genetics alone. It's often a signal that protein delivery and metabolic signaling are impaired. Now here's the critical misunderstanding. Most people think I eat enough protein so my hair should be fine. But protein intake is not the same as protein utilization. What the research shows is that insulin resistance, even mild early-stage insulin resistance, reduces amino acid uptake into peripheral tissues like skin and hair follicles. Insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone, it's a nutrient delivery signal. When cells stop responding to it efficiently, amino acids stay in the bloodstream instead of entering the cells that need them. That means you can eat eggs, chicken, or protein shakes, and your hair follicles still don't toggle into growth mode. Now, this brings us to the vegetable at the center of today's conversation: spinach. Spinach doesn't contain more total grams of protein than eggs by weight, but per calorie it delivers more protein density alongside something eggs lack: metabolic coactors. Spinach provides magnesium, essential for protein synthesis, folate critical for cell division in hair follicles, vitamin C required for collagen cross-linking, nitrates which improve blood flow to the scalp, polyphenols which reduce follicle inflammation. Here's why this matters. Protein doesn't build hair on its own. It needs enzymes, minerals, and circulation to be converted into keratin and collagen. Spinach acts like a delivery vehicle. It improves the metabolic environment so protein can actually be used. Several studies in nutritional biochemistry show that leafy greens enhance nitric oxide availability, improving microirculation. That means more oxygen and amino acids reach the hair follicle bulb, the exact site where hair growth begins. Now let's make this practical. If hair regrowth is your goal, spinach works best when consumed earlier in the day to support insulin sensitivity, paired with healthy fats like olive oil or avocado to enhance nutrient absorption. Lightly cooked or blended, which increases mineral bioavailability, combined with a protein source not used alone. A simple protocol. Add 1 to 2 cups of cooked spinach to your first or second meal of the day, paired with eggs, fish, or legumes. This improves amino acid uptake and collagen signaling throughout the day, and avoid this mistake. Don't combine spinach with ultra-refined carbohydrates. High glucose spikes cancel out its insulin sensitizing benefits. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day to help you fix root causes, not just symptoms. Here's what most people don't realize about eggs and hair loss, and why relying on them alone can quietly work against you as you age. Eggs are an excellent food. They're rich in amino acids, biotin, choline, and fats, soluble vitamins. But hair loss is not caused by a lack of protein alone. It's caused by a mismatch between protein intake and hormonal signaling. Here's what's really going on inside your body. As you move into your 30s, 40s, and beyond, 2 major hormonal shifts begin to occur simultaneously. First, insulin signaling becomes less efficient. Second, cortisol output becomes more dominant, especially in the morning. These changes alter how your body prioritizes protein use. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of protein as mail being delivered. Eggs provide a big stack of packages, but hormones decide where the mail goes. When insulin sensitivity is low and cortisol is high, the body reroutes protein towards survival tissues, muscles, and organs, and away from non-essential tissues like hair and skin. This is why people can eat eggs every day and still experience thinning hair. Now here's where spinach changes the equation. Spinach contains magnesium and folate, which directly influence insulin receptor sensitivity. When insulin signaling improves, amino acids from eggs can actually enter hair follicle cells instead of circulating unused. Research in metabolic physiology shows that magnesium deficiency alone can impair insulin signaling by over 30%. That's enormous. And leafy greens are one of the most reliable dietary sources of bioavailable magnesium. There's another layer here that's even more important. Hair follicles are highly sensitive to cortisol, chronic stress. Whether emotional, inflammatory, or metabolic, pushes follicles into a resting phase called telogen. Eggs do not lower cortisol. Spinach does. Spinach contains adaptogenic polyphenols and vitamin C, which help blunt cortisol's impact on peripheral tissues. This creates a hormonal environment that favors growth instead of conservation. Now let's talk about a common mistake. Many people eat eggs first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. That's not always ideal for hair health. Why? Because cortisol is naturally highest in the early morning. Adding a protein-heavy meal without buffering minerals or fiber can amplify cortisol's effects. A smarter strategy is this. Pair eggs with spinach and healthy fats. This slows digestion, stabilizes blood sugar, and reduces cortisol spikes, allowing protein to be used for regeneration instead of stress response. Here's a practical protocol you can use immediately. Eat eggs with 1 to 2 cups of cooked spinach. Add olive oil or avocado for fat-soluble vitamin absorption. Avoid fruit juice or refined carbs with this meal. Eat within 60-90 minutes of waking, not immediately upon waking. This simple change improves amino acid delivery, reduces cortisol impact, and supports follicle growth signaling. Now, let's address protein quantity. As we age, we experience something called anabolic resistance. That means hair follicles need more signaling support, not just more protein. Adding spinach increases the efficiency of protein use, meaning you often need less total protein to get better results. And this is why cultures with high leafy green intake often show better hair density with lower animal protein consumption. Hair loss is not a protein problem, it's a metabolic context problem. In the next section, I'll explain how blood flow to the scalp determines whether follicles wake up or stay dormant and the surprising way vegetables influence circulation more than supplements. Let's talk about blood flow. Because even if you eat the right protein, minerals, and vitamins, hair follicles will not grow without adequate circulation. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every hair follicle sits at the end of a microscopic blood vessel. That vessel is responsible for delivering oxygen, amino acids, minerals, and growth signals. When blood flow drops, even slightly, follicles don't die, they go dormant. Think of them like light bulbs connected to a dimmer switch. Poor circulation doesn't turn them off, it just keeps them from fully turning on. Now here's the critical mistake most people make. They focus on scalp massage, oils, or supplements without addressing vascular health. But hair follicles don't respond to topical solutions if the internal delivery system is compromised. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine trying to water a garden with a kink-edged hose. You can add more fertilizer, better soil, even better seeds. But if water can't flow freely, growth stalls. Blood flow is that hose. As we age, especially under chronic stress or high insulin levels, blood vessels become less responsive. Nitric oxide, the molecule that tells vessels to relax and open, declines. This reduces oxygen delivery to peripheral tissues like the scalp. Now here's where this vegetable becomes powerful. Spinach is one of the richest natural sources of dietary nitrates, which the body converts into nitric oxide. This pathway is well documented in vascular physiology research. Unlike stimulant-based vasodilators, nitrates improve blood flow gently and sustainably. What the research shows is that dietary nitrates improve endothelial function, the ability of blood vessels to respond and expand within hours of consumption. That means the food you eat today can influence scalp circulation today. But there's a second layer most people miss. Insulin resistance doesn't just affect blood sugar, it stiffens blood vessels. High insulin tells vessels to constrict and store energy, not deliver it. This is why people with metabolic dysfunction often experience hair thinning at the temples and crown first, areas with the most fragile circulation. Spinach helps reverse this by lowering post-meal insulin spikes and improving insulin sensitivity over time. Better insulin signaling equals better blood flow. Now here's how to apply this practically. If your goal is hair regrowth or slowing hair loss, the timing of spinach matters. Eating spinach earlier in the day improves nitric oxide availability during periods of higher cortisol and vascular tension. This counteracts stress-induced vasoconstriction and supports nutrient delivery when follicles are most vulnerable. Here's a simple daily protocol. Include spinach with your first protein-rich meal. Lightly cook it to improve nitrate absorption. Pair it with vitamin C-rich foods like lemon or peppers. Avoid mouthwash immediately after eating. It disrupts nitrate conversion. Yes, that last point matters. Oral bacteria play a role in converting nitrates into nitric oxide. This is physiology, not folklore. Another key insight: blood flow is not just about opening vessels, it's about mitochondrial demand. Hair follicles are energy-intensive tissues. When mitochondrial function declines, the body deprioritizes them. Spinach contains compounds like lutein and alpha-lipoic acid precursors that support mitochondrial efficiency, allowing follicles to justify continued blood supply. This is why circulation alone isn't enough. The tissue must signal, "I'm worth feeding." And this brings us to an important truth. Hair loss is not a scalp problem. It's a systemic energy and circulation problem. If this is making sense so far, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. I share content like this daily, focused on fixing root causes, not chasing symptoms. In the next section, I'll break down how inflammation silently shuts down hair growth and why certain vegetables outperform supplements at calming follicle-level inflammation. Let's go one layer deeper, because even with good blood flow and enough protein, inflammation can quietly shut hair growth down. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Hair follicles are immune-sensitive structures. That means they're constantly monitored by your immune system. When inflammation rises from blood sugar spikes, gut irritation, poor sleep, or chronic stress, the immune system releases signaling molecules called cytokines. These cytokines don't attack hair directly, they put follicles into snorts, a protective shutdown mode. Think of it like a city under threat. When danger signals rise, non-essential services are paused. Hair growth is considered non-essential for survival. So follicles enter the telogen or resting phase earlier than they should. Over time, this shortens the growth cycle and makes hair thinner, weaker, and slower to regrow. Now here's the mistake most people make. They look for anti-inflammatory shampoos, oils, or supplements without calming inflammation at the metabolic level. But follicle inflammation almost always starts internally. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine a smoke alarm going off in your house. You wouldn't silence the alarm without putting out the fire. Topical treatments silence symptoms. Food extinguishes the fire. This is where this vegetable becomes uniquely powerful. Spinach contains bioactive compounds including quercetin, lutein, and chlorophyll that reduce inflammatory signaling inside the follicle environment. These compounds don't just act as antioxidants, they regulate immune response. What the research shows is that polyphenols from leafy greens inhibit NF-κB, a master inflammatory switch that drives cytokine production. When NF-κB is overactive, hair follicles receive constant danger signals. Turn that switch down, and follicles re-enter growth mode. But there's a deeper metabolic connection here. Inflammation and insulin resistance travel together. When insulin stays elevated, it drives oxidative stress and inflammatory cascades that damage small blood vessels, including those feeding the scalp. This is why hair loss often accelerates after meals high in refined carbohydrates, even if total calories are controlled. Spinach helps here in two ways. It slows glucose absorption, it improves insulin signaling at the cellular level. That combination lowers post-meal inflammation, which directly protects hair follicles. Now let's talk application. To maximize anti-inflammatory effects, spinach needs fat. Many of its protective compounds are fat-soluble. Without fat, absorption is poor. This is why low-fat diets often fail to improve hair quality despite high vegetable intake. Here's a simple protocol. Lightly sauté spinach in olive oil or avocado oil. Add it to eggs, salmon, or tofu. Avoid overcooking. Heat destroys polyphenols. Eat consistently. Inflammation responds to patterns, not one-time meals. Another overlooked factor is gut-driven inflammation. If your gut barrier is compromised, inflammatory molecules enter circulation and reach hair follicles. Spinach provides glutamine precursors and magnesium which help restore gut lining integrity. This is why some people notice reduced hair shedding before they see regrowth. The immune attack stops first, growth follows later. And here's an important mindset shift. Hair regrowth is not about forcing follicles to grow, it's about making the environment safe enough for them to grow. Lower inflammation, improve circulation, provide usable protein. That's the order. If this section is helpful, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day, grounded in physiology, not hype. In the next section, we'll talk about hormonal signaling, especially cortisol and DHT, and how this vegetable helps rebalance both without suppressing hormones artificially. Now let's talk about hormones because this is where hair loss after 40 or 50 is often misunderstood. Most people blame hormones as the enemy. They hear words like DHT or cortisol and immediately think suppression. But here's what's really going on inside your body. Hormones don't cause hair loss by themselves. Hormonal imbalance does. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Hormones are like text messages. They only become a problem when too many messages are sent or when the receiver becomes overly sensitive. In hair loss, it's rarely about having too much of a hormone. It's about how your tissues respond to it. Let's start with cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. It's essential in the morning for energy, focus, and blood sugar control. But when cortisol stays elevated from poor sleep, undereating protein, excessive caffeine, or chronic psychological stress, it directly shortens the hair growth phase. What the research shows is that cortisol pushes follicles prematurely into the resting phase. Even worse, it reduces the activity of dermal pillar cells, the command center that tells hair when to grow. Now here's where spinach quietly helps. Spinach is rich in magnesium and folate. Magnesium is a natural cortisol modulator. It doesn't suppress cortisol, it normalizes the stress response. Folate supports methylation, which helps the brain turn stress signals off after they've done their job. This is why people who are magnesium deficient often experience both anxiety and hair thinning at the same time. Now let's talk about DHT. DHT is not a bad hormone. It's a powerful androgen involved in muscle strength, motivation, and metabolic health. The issue is excessive conversion of testosterone into DHT at the tissue level, especially when insulin is high. Here's what's really happening. When insulin is elevated, the enzyme 5-alpha reductase becomes more active. This enzyme converts testosterone into DHT locally in tissues like the scalp. So again, insulin is upstream. Spinach improves insulin sensitivity, which indirectly reduces excessive DHT signaling where it doesn't belong. This is a regulatory effect, not suppression. There's also another key compound at work here, beta-carotene. Beta-carotene converts into vitamin A as needed, not all at once. Vitamin A regulates sebaceous gland activity and follicle differentiation. Too little vitamin A impairs hair growth. Too much causes hair loss. Spinach provides adaptive vitamin A, which is one reason it's safer than high-dose supplements. Now, let's connect cortisol, insulin, and hair loss together. High stress raises cortisol. High cortisol raises blood sugar. High blood sugar raises insulin. High insulin increases inflammation and DHT activity. That's the cascade. Spinach helps interrupt this cascade at multiple points, which is why it punches far above its weight. But timing matters. If you eat spinach in the morning or early afternoon, magnesium supports circadian rhythm alignment. Cortisol rises when it should and falls when it should. Hair follicles respond best to this rhythm. Late-night eating, on the other hand, raises insulin at the wrong time, and that suppresses growth hormone, which is essential for follicle repair overnight. Here's a simple daily hormone support protocol. Eat spinach earlier in the day, pair it with protein to stabilize blood sugar. Avoid sugar-heavy breakfasts. Get morning sunlight to reinforce cortisol rhythm. And one more important point. Many people experiencing hair loss are unintentionally undereating. Chronic caloric restriction raises cortisol long-term even if weight is stable. Hair loss is often the first sign your body feels unsafe. Spinach helps, but it must be part of a nourishing, not restrictive strategy. Hair grows when the body senses abundance, safety, and stability. If this is resonating, stay with me, because in the next section, we'll talk about micronutrients most people are missing entirely and how this vegetable delivers them in a form your follicles can actually use. Now let's talk about micronutrients because this is where most hair loss conversations completely miss the mark. People focus on protein quantity, but hair follicles are not just protein factories. They are metabolically active mini organs. They require enzymes, coactors, oxygen delivery, and cellular signaling to function properly. Without the right micronutrients, protein can't even be used effectively. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Think of protein as bricks. Micronutrients are the workers, tools, and blueprints. If you have bricks but no workers, nothing gets built. One of the biggest hidden drivers of hair thinning is functional micronutrient deficiency, meaning levels may look normal on blood tests but not sufficient at the tissue level. Let me explain with a simple analogy. Imagine trying to water your lawn with a kink-edged hose. You may have plenty of water at the source, but the grass still turns brown. Hair follicles experience the same problem when circulation, nitric oxide, and mitochondrial function are impaired. This is where spinach becomes uniquely powerful. Spinach is rich in dietary nitrates, which your body converts into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide relaxes blood vessels, improving microirculation to the scalp. Better circulation means more oxygen, more nutrients, and better waste removal. All essential for follicle survival. What the research shows is that nitric oxide signaling directly supports the anagen or growth phase of the hair cycle. Poor blood flow shortens this phase. Improved blood flow lengthens it. Spinach also delivers iron in a plant-bound form. This matters because iron deficiency is one of the most common contributors to hair loss, especially in women. But excess iron can increase oxidative stress. Plant-based iron from spinach is absorbed more gradually and regulated by the body's iron sensors. When paired with vitamin C, which spinach also provides, absorption improves without overload. Now let's talk about zinc. Zinc is essential for keratin production, DNA repair, and follicle immune protection. Low zinc weakens the hair shaft and increases shedding. Spinach provides zinc along with polyphenols that reduce inflammation around follicles. And then there's vitamin C. Vitamin C is required for collagen synthesis. Hair follicles are anchored in a collagen-rich matrix. Without enough vitamin C, collagen cross-linking weakens and hairs shed more easily. Spinach provides vitamin C in context, not as an isolated megos, but as part of a balanced nutrient matrix that supports collagen naturally. Now here's an important point most people don't realize. Hair follicles are among the fastest dividing cells in the body. That means they are extremely sensitive to oxidative stress. Free radicals damage follicle stem cells long before you notice visible thinning. Spinach is rich in antioxidants like lutein and quercetin, which protect follicle stem cells and reduce inflammatory signaling in the scalp. Let's connect this back to metabolism. Insulin resistance reduces nitric oxide production. Inflammation blocks micronutrient uptake. Stress increases nutrient loss through urine. So again, hair loss is a systems issue. Here's a practical micronutrient protocol. Eat spinach at least 4-5 days per week. Lightly cook it to reduce oxalates. Pair it with vitamin C-rich foods. Include healthy fats to absorb carotenoids. And one more critical mistake to avoid: do not rely on supplements alone. Micronutrients work best in food matrices where they interact synergistically. Supplements fill gaps. Food builds systems. If this is helping so far, consider subscribing. I post evidence-based practical strategies like this regularly. In the next section, we'll break down how to use this vegetable strategically, exact portions, preparation methods, and combinations that maximize hair regrowth signals.